Okay, good morning. We're continuing with Hilchos Mikvahs Reish Aleph. And happy Hanukkah. We're going to start with Siman Seif Nun Hey. But before we do that, I just have to take one step back just to explain. I realize it may not have been clear. So when you go to nowadays, when you go to a mikvah, a good Mahadran proper mikvah will generally have three boros, or three Mikvahs, three places of water that are all mem se'ah. Okay, so why? So it may not have been totally clear. I think two of the three we understand. One of them is the mikvah water that we go into. That's called the bor tevila. That's where we all go inside. That's what, when you go inside a mikvah, that's what you see. That's what we go inside. However, there often, that water basically comes from the tap, comes from the sink water, the hose, the pipes, whatever it is. Well, Lamaisa, it's not a hose, but basically it comes from the city tap water through pipes. Now, that water we consider mayim she'uvim, right? It goes through containers, filters, scales, whatever it is. We consider that mayim she'uvim. So we all know that you have another mikvah that you don't see on the other side of the wall. So there's normally in a good mahadrid place you'll find two boros. You don't have to. But lechatchila, that's how they'll normally build it, with two separate boros, two separate mikvahs, because those are the ones that are filled from rainwater, right? We can't have a mikvah of mayim she'uvim, so therefore we have the ones that are filled from the rain come from the roof through pipes that are not makabel tuma, and they go and they fill up these two separate mikvahs. Right? It pours down the pipes onto a little ledge or a canal, open canal. So there's Hashaka, at least 3 tvachim. It flows, and then it enters 2 boros. Why 2? When you go into the mikveh yourself, you will usually be able to see 2 holes on the side of the mikveh. There's one hole below the water, right? That's covered up with water. And then there's another hole above the water line. Okay, one below, one above. Why? And they're not on top of each other, usually, because they're coming from 2 separate boros. On the other side of the wall that you don't see, you have 2 mikvahs of mem se'ah that are filled with rainwater, not mayim she'uvim. So both of those boros are 100% kosher mikvahs. And one of them comes through a pipe below, and one of them, the water can get into the one that you go dipping in, the bor tevila, that's above the water line. Now, so why do you have to have 2? So each one gets filled from mei geshamim. Now, the reason why the bor tevila, right, the one that, why don't we just go dipping in the bor geshamim? Because those are called Otzars or bors or Mikvaos. Why don't we go in them? Because we want to be able to filter the water, empty the water, clean the place, dry it out, and refill it up with clean water every so often. That's going to be tap water, mayim she'uvim. So you need a bor. You need at least one. You don't need 2, but you need at least one. That's a proper kosher mikvah, 100% deraisa derabanan. That'll be machshir. Will make the other mikvah of mayim she'uvim kosher. So how do you do that? So one we explained, that was mostly yesterday, Hashaka. As long as there's the water is touching from one to another, that's that pipe, that's that hole that you see in the wall below the water line, it's always touching. It's connected. It has to be big enough than shoferet hanod, so they'll generally build it with a pipe that's at least the diameter, the hollow diameter will be 5 to 6 centimeters, and that's how you have hashaka, right? Since one is a kosher of mei geshamim, it's a mikvah, it's not a mayan. It could be a mayan, but that's not how we do it. When we build a mikvah with rainwater from, anyways, in the cities, so then that makes it kosher. Now, what do we learn? basically according to all the poskim and the Ikar halacha, is if, as long as it touches once, there's a hashaka, it kisses, there's a chibur, there's a connection from one to the other, once in a lifetime, you can empty out the other bore, and your bore mikvah will be kosher. As long as you don't empty it, your bore mikvah is kosher forever. However, we heard that there's an opinion of Rabbeinu Yoreh who says, wait, it's only kosher if it's actively open and touching. The water is going through and it's touching, so it has to be below the water line. If you close it up, it's no good. So our mikvahs, as long as it's open, it's 100% kosher for everybody, right? Everyone agrees it's 100% kosher. What's the problem? It could be that they closed it. Let's say they closed it at night so the water doesn't mix, or they close it at night when they empty. Sometimes they close up that hole. If they're going to empty the bor tevilah and refill it up with water, it's going to be empty. And they don't want the water to empty out, and so they close up that hole. So the chashash is maybe the guy in charge of maintenance or the balanit or whoever doesn't have that hole open. It'll be closed one time on the weekend or one night or whatever, during the day, whatever it is, and it won't stay open. So therefore, according to the Rabbeinu Yoreh, you can't. It doesn't work. You're not tahor. But she's not tahor. We're not. Whatever. Whoever goes in is not tahor. Again, we don't paskin like him, but that is a real opinion that we're choshesh for. So that's the reason why, because a person might have it closed up, and if it's closed up, it's a problem for the Rabbeinu Yoreh. He came up with another bor. That's called the Otzar Zeriah. I'll explain in a sec. Okay, so that's that one. Why do we have this Otzar? So that's why we have an Otzar Zeriah, in order so that even if the other one is no good, if it was sealed, well, we have another one. And then I'll explain to you why, if you have an Otzar Zeriah, why you need the Otzar Hashaka. Okay, so why? So what is the Otzar Zeriah? We learned this before. What you do is you turn on, you get the rainwater, that fills up that Otzar Zeriah. We established that. Now what do? They turn on tap water. How do you fill up your bor tevilah? Okay. I didn't want to make confusing. We actually do not take a hose to fill up our bor tevilah. Or there's no berez, there's no faucet inside our bor. You look around, there's no faucet. There's no tsinor, there's no hole in the wall that shoots out water in there, right? At least that's not how it's used. If it has one, it's not used, generally speaking. If you have this Otzar Zeriah. If there's no Otzar Zeriah and you only have the other one, it's still a kosher mikvah, but then that's how that they can fill it up that way. Anyway, so how do you fill up, if you have an Otzar Zeriah, how do you fill up your bor tevilah? There's a berez per se, a faucet or a hole where the water shoots out of, into this little canal. You do hamshacha, it flows down into the bor Zeriah. Then the bor Zeriah, if you just keep on adding water, what's going to happen? It's going to overflow. So that's that hole that you see above the water line. If you overflow the bor Zeriah, the water is going to overflow and come into in the bor tevilah. And the purpose of Otzar Zeriah is that, as everyone agrees, except for the Ravid, and that's the halacha is what everyone agrees, all the Rishonim, that if got deleted. Yeah. Okay. Okay, never mind. That's not good. Okay. Why do you need the Otzar Zeriah? Is if you have Otzar Zeriah, you are filling up the water, and according to the halacha, except for the Ravid, you can pour as much water, tap water, into this bor Zeriah, and it can overflow, and it'll basically machshir and mataher, whatever, it'll turn all your mayim she'uvim into non-mayim she'uvim. Because the bor Zeriah, Otzar Zeriah, or bor Zeriah, Otzar Zeriah, it's a kosher mei geshamim. And you can add in there tap water. You can take cups and pour in cups. You can take a hose. You can whatever you take, and whatever goes in there, as long as it overflows and comes out, then all of that water is no longer called mayim she'uvim.
What's the minimum amount of water the Bor Zeriah?
The Bor Zeriah also has to be memsa. Like every mikvah is memsa, unless it's a mayan, minimum, at least for people. So that's, but Lamaisa, that's what it is. At least at the Rabbanan, fine. So the Bor Zeriah is just a regular mikvah, but it's called a Bor Zeriah because you're using that to be mataher mayim she'uvim that will now fill up your mikvah. And then you can close off. You don't have to have a shaka. You can close off, you can empty out your bor, your Otzar Zeriah. You can throw it away. And you can throw away. You can throw away all your other boros. And the bor tevila, as long as it became kosher through Zeriah, everybody holds that's a fine mikvah. But the Raavad has a problem that if you add enough water to the bor Zeriah, that you end up diluting, ki'ilu, it pushes out the mei geshamim, and if you add more water and too much water in there, eventually the bor Zeriah, or the Otzar Zeriah, turns into mayim she'uvim itself. So that's the chumrah of the Raavad. So in order to be yotzei for the Raavad, we have the bor Hashaka. And if you have only a bor, so that's why if you only have the bor Hashaka, then that will help you for the, so then each one helps you. So if you have both boros, according to all shitas, you're 100% good between the two of them. Even if the bor Hashaka would have been closed when she or someone goes in there. So that's the purpose of why you need both. Okay. Now let's see Nun Hey inside. Oh, I don't even know what time we're on anymore. You'll tell me when to stop. Okay. Nun Hey. 20 minutes already? 12 minutes so far? Yeah. Okay. So we'll go another 12. Shlosha mikvahs sheyesh b'shnayim mehem b'kol echad esrim seah mayim ksherim. Now, you have two separate mikvahs, right? So far we're assuming they're both kosher water. But there's not enough. There's only 20 se'ah, and you need 40. Ube'echad mehem esrim se'ah mayim 1 second. So you have 3 of them. They're all 20. 2 of them are mei geshamim. Ube'echad mehem esrim se'ah mayim she'uvim. But 1 of them is esrim se'ah of mayim she'uvim. Ve'omdim zeh b'tzad zeh. So the two mei geshamim ones, rainwater ones, are next to each other. Well, they're all next to each other, but let me explain. They're all next to each other, and they're all connected. Let's assume right now with a shvoferet hanod, right? So they're all next to each other, 3 separate boros, but they're all connected. If the mayim she'uvim one is on one of the 2 ends, v'yardu shlosha v'tavlu bahem u'mitokach nitmalu v'yatsu al sfatim yarbu yachad huchshiru shloshtam. Okay. Sorry. There's no pipe in between them. If there would be a pipe in between all 3, then it would have been fine. Of shoferet hanod, because that's a chibur. And you have the mayim mei geshamim connected to the mei geshamim, and then mayim she'uvim on the side. Now they all become kosher.
Assuming that you connected the 2
with
the rainwater mikvahs first.
No, I don't think the order matters. It could be in any order. So, yeah, that doesn't passel it. If you were to take shlosha lugim and to pour it into one, it can passel it. But if it's only hashaka, it's not going to passel. That's not gimel she'uvim. So here we go. What's this case? There is no pipe connecting all of them. But when 3 people go in at the same time, it makes the right water displacement. All the water rises, And then they're connected because it goes over the wall that's in between each one of these boros or mikvos. So then, because the water overflows, now they're all touching up on top, right? It needs to be at least a width of shoferet hanod, and only a thin layer, right? Like a peel of an onion, we saw that. Then they're all kosher. Why? Since at one time they're all connected. As long as you have 40 se'ah connected at one time, those are kosher, and that'll make the mayim shuvim one kosher. And then even if a person comes out of one of the rainwater ones, since the other two are touching, and they're 40 altogether, then it's still kosher. Okay, let's keep going on, right? Because once it became kosher, it's always kosher, right? With Hashaka. That's what we learn in Mikar Din. That's what the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Okay. Ve'otam shetavlu bahem taharim. And if you went into that mikvah, then and any one of those 3 mikvahs, all 3 people are kosher, are now tahor. V'im hasha'uv be'emtza. However, if the mayim she'uvim one is in the middle, so the 2 megashamim ones can't touch directly. She'ein shnayim aksherim mecholim d'arev. Ela al yado, except through the mayim she'uvim lo huchsharu. It doesn't help, it's not kosher. All 3 mikvahs are not kosher, either because mayim she'uvim or because there's not 40 se'ah. Ela nisharu kamo shahayu techila. Those people stay the same as they were before, or the mikvahs are the same status as they have before, not kosher. Ve'otam shetavlu behem lo nitaru, and those who were inside of them are not tahor. Nun vav. Shnei mikvahs shel esrim se'ah. You have 2 mikvahs, and they're both 20, each one has 20 se'ah. Echad sha'uv ve'echad kasher. One is sha'uv and one is kasher. Yardu shnayim v'hishikum. Now, 2 people, a person went into each one of them, and now they're connected. V'tavlu bahem, and they went into the mikvah. Afilu adumim ve'hilbinum, olavanim ve'hedimum. Even if one of them is red water, again, we learned before about shinoi imara, it depends. Let's assume it's not an issue. So if, it doesn't matter, even if they're a little bit of a different color or clear, then it still connects, mikvahs. Kamut shahayu, sorry. HaMikvahs kamot shahayu v'atovlim kemot shahayu. So it doesn't work, because you don't have 40 se'ah with a kosher mikvah.
What does the color do with it? It didn't ruin it, even though
yeah,
it changed the color, but it doesn't ruin the original status.
It doesn't, right, it doesn't ruin the original status, but the problem is it's no, okay. You don't have a mem se'ah of megashamim, so that doesn't help. Okay, yeah. Okay. Let's do Nun Zayin. Kol ha'ma'urav la'mikvah, harehu ke'mikvah u'matbilin bo. Anytime you have mikvahs getting connected, then if one of them is kosher, then generally speaking, they're all going to be kosher. Let's see. For example, gumot hasmuchot lefi hamikvah u'makom raglei parsos behema shayu behem mayim me'uravim imei mikvah. So let's say you have next to a kosher mikvah of mem se'ah, kosher mikvah megashamim. Next to it, you have these other pits that collect water. I don't know, it could be any puddles. It could be puddles that are meant special on purpose, or you use them to wash the feet of your animals, whatever it is. Any kind of a puddle next to a mikvah. But it's outside. Yeah, the animals can step into it, okay, or they make the puddles, whatever the case might be. Then you have these puddles next to a kosher mikvah. So if it's connected, if you build a connection sideways, you dig a ditch sideways, it has to be, if it's kishvaferet hanod, madbilin bahem. As long as it's connected sideways, it has to be a full area of shvaferet hanod, right? A full circle. If it would be over, anytime you're going through the sideway walls of two separate gumos, it has to be shvaferet hanod connecting. If, we're going to see the next case, but in this case, if it went overflowing over the walls, then that's when it only needs to be a very thin layer. But if it's going sideways through the walls, even if it's open, you can see it, it still needs to be shvaferet hanod, but it's going sideways through the walls. If it's going over the walls, then it's different. Now, nun chet, we have to see this one together. Chorei, oh, I skipped, sorry. Haga, ulachein, kli hamunach betzad ha-mikvah, minanea biyado ha-mikvah. Okay, fine. Let me just say, so in these little puddles, now it comes very useful. Let's say you have a needle, you want to kasher. Let's say you have a fork, you want to kasher. And you're afraid to kasher it in the mikvah because it might slip out of your fingers and then go to the bottom and then you can't get it anymore. So these are very useful. You want to use these puddles. All right? It's a way of protecting your stuff so it doesn't get lost if it falls. So that's why you want to be able to use, that's why it's important. It could be important. So that leads to the Ramah. The Ramah is a similar case. Let's say on the side of the mikvah you have, let's say, steps going into the mikvah, or whatever or a puddle, whatever it is. So you don't want to put it all the way in the mikvah. You want to just put it down on a step or not a puddle that's not completely full, so it doesn't cover up your fork. Right next to the mikvah, you can put your kli next to it. And then you can splash around the water a little bit, push it to the side. You're not lifting up the water. You're just moving the water sideways. So it's not going out of the water. It's not jumping out. You're just moving it sideways. And then the water is going to come back inside. Right? Because we want a case, generally speaking, to avoid the issue of zochalin, the water has to be where it's in its natural state. Going inside the water, we learned, just obviously anytime you go inside the water is going to move to the side because you went in there. Right? It's going to trickle away, whatever it is. That's not called zochalin. That's not going to be an issue. And so too here, just moving your hands to push the water to the side a little bit is not going to turn it into zochalin because you're doing that yourself. It's not happening by itself, and it's going to come right back into the same area. Even if it's natural and it comes back into the same area, that might not be a problem for zochalin. Okay? So you put it next to it, and I don't want to use the word splash because you're not splashing water outside, you're pushing the water to the side. You make a little bit like a wave, and then it completely covers the kli, and that tefillah is 100% good. It'll be alvad, as long as it doesn't come out of the water, and therefore, even if it's, and that's not called, and that's still called ashboren, that's not a problem, and it's plain spade, and it's important that it doesn't jump out, because if it jumps out, then it's only going to be kosher if it's a ma'ayan, and here we're dealing with a mikvah. Okay, let's do one more, at least one more. 23. Okay, we'll do one more because this is important. Chure hame'ara ustake hame'ara. Now, a me'ara over here, right, means a cave, but actually here it means a mikvah, because in those days mikvahs were generally, they use mikvahs in caves, so because it's tsanua. If you have a choice, you're always going to go in a cave. It's like a closed room, so that's why. In the Lashon of the Mishnah, a me'ara is sometimes referred to as a mikvah. So here, you have a mikvah. It could be in a cave or not a cave, doesn't matter. But you have little crevices, little jet outs, little cracks on the side of the mikvah in the cave, or whatever it is, protrusions. So even though they're small, matbilin behem, you're allowed to dip or put your dishes inside these little crevices or little jet outs. And it doesn't have to be kishvoferet hanod, because it's not like in case Nun Zayin. Nun Zayin, you're having a separate bore, it's a separate puddle. It's blocked by a wall. And therefore, to connect two separate pits, you have to have a connection through a wall of shoferet hanod, or over the wall, at least wide as shoferet hanod. But as long as it's considered one pit, even though you have protrusions, it's the same pit, and you only need kol shehu, chuta se'ara, and that's it.
Sure.